Hello, hello. Welcome back to Business First Creatives Podcast. I have somebody on here today who has convinced me of the power of launching, which I never really thought that I would go for. Every time I hear launches, I think of selling digital products, selling digital courses, false urgency, opening close carts, like all of those things. But it wasn't until I did my launch of the CRM Blueprint back in, what was that, May of 2025, and it didn't go as well as I'd hoped, that I was beginning to really pay attention to emails from Kelsey of Coming Up Roses about her Launch Your Own Way program. And so I have finally convinced her to come on my podcast and convince you of the power of launching too. Kelsey, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm very excited to give hopefully even more people that mindset shift around launching.
You were the first person that I think ever connected for me launching with services. And it could just be that I'm constantly in a world where people are talking about creating digital products, creating courses. And I mean, I even had a few launch products before I joined Launch Your Own Way, but none of them ever convinced me to sell anything other than a course through a formal launch. And so I would even go as far to say I was anti launch before I met you, Kelsey. So you definitely turned me around. But let's get into launching. So why should everybody be paying attention to launching, especially if they're trying to sell pretty much anything in 2026?
Great question. Also, I love that I'm like a launch converter. Like I I help people totally change their mind on it. Well, I think the biggest thing is that, especially if we're talking service providers, is that your services are always on. Therefore, and for most service providers, what I see is that they're kind of sitting dusty on a services page. Maybe they're presented with a couple bullet points and a button to book now. So when you have to think about someone, a total stranger, finding you wherever you are on the internet, it might be Threads, it might be Instagram, wherever you are showing up, and their journey, I know that's what you talk about all the time, to booking a project with you. Right now, they're presented with offers that are always on, with minimal description, that are very generalized often. And a lot of people are just like, okay, this seems like something I might need, but maybe not. It doesn't sound geared toward me. There's no reason for them to kind of book right now and inquire. So they'll just end up in your audience as lurkers. And I always describe it as like there's so many people in your audience right now just lurking. They're probably interested in working with you. They probably would really benefit from working with you, but they just have no idea what you're offering them because you're not presenting it to them. You're waiting for them to come to you. So it's this real flip of like this passive kind of whenever, come on in, to like actively being like, okay, this is what I have for you. It's built for you. It's perfect for you. And really giving your offer the dignity, I say, that it deserves with, a brand, a moment to really shine and sell. So yeah, I think that's why it's so important now. So people will actually inquire and experience your talent and your magic as a service provider.
I feel like as a service provider, so many people loathe selling. And I'm like, no, that's not me. I love selling. And more specifically, I love it when I get the chance to have a conversation with someone to make sure that they have all of the information that they need in order to make a decision about working with me. Because I do feel like a lot of people just kind of leave that out. And you were right. You were talking and I grabbed my marker and a piece of paper. I don't know why I didn't think I was going to have to do this with you, Kelsey, but you said a word and then I was like, oh, proactive. And I do feel like that's what you are kind of encouraging people to do when you are helping people focus on launching, is that it puts you in the driver's seat and you are really being proactive about sharing what you offer, who it's for, and how they can work with you instead of just putting a sales page up and hoping that Google is going to bring people to you, which I mean, in some cases that works, but often it doesn't.
I just would never rely my livelihood on happenstance or whatever the word is. Like, to me, I got into my own business to have control over the money that's coming in, when it's coming in, when I'm not working, when I am working. So then to like start my own business and leave so much up to whether or not someone refers me to someone else or whether or not someone happens to find me on LinkedIn or Google or whatever, just never makes sense to me. I am a very like go-getter person, and I think that that's very much reflected in the way that I show up. And I also think to kind of double click on the idea of like service providers, creatives hate selling. I think sales, they really need a mindset shift around it. Sales are just a byproduct of trust. So if you are showing up being generous, giving value, if you're great at what you do, if you trust that you can deliver on what you're promising, sales are pretty much easy. Like, I think people just think like, oh, I have to show up and be like, buy my thing, buy my thing. Like, that's not what selling is at all. You learn in the program that I teach in Launch Your Own Way, like sales just comes as a result of the things that you do before you even open the card. So much of that even idea of sales, I feel like needs a whole rebrand and could be its own podcast in and of itself.
I mean, it could be. And we're about to talk about the warm up because I feel like this is also something that really makes you unique in how you talk about warming up for your launch. But before we get to that, you had said something about trust and basically, putting what it is that you do and how you can help people. And I feel like for a lot of service providers, they're providing a lot of value, but then they forget to like literally present how you can work with me. It's like they're giving, all of this content, they're creating it, and then at the end of the day, someone's like, "Oh, all of that makes sense, but like how can you help me with that?" I feel like a lot of people don't connect. Yes, you can give value, but you also have to talk about the offer, which is how you help your audience solve the unique problem that they may have.
That's such a good point. And that's where launching comes in, I think. It's like it's the process of getting used to doing that, right? Of closing the loop of going, okay, yes, like I can help you XYZ, or here's how you do XYZ. By the way, if you want me to do that for you, or if you want me to teach you how to do that, like this is where you go. And launching kind of is that like bridge into sales.
Did you see that trend? Because I know that you're all over Instagram and threads. There were like these posts that people were putting, like, just out of curiosity, do you know what I offer? And then like people were responding with whether or not they could name the offer or the service that they provided. And if you're posting often enough, then people could probably scroll through and see. But like at a glance, like I want everyone to know Coley James helps you set up your systems in Dubsado and Honeybook. Kelsey McCormick helps you launch your services and products through Launch Your Own Way. I feel like there is that name recognition and that visibility, but you have to do it enough to where people say your name even when you're not in the room.
Yes, exactly. And I think part of that goes with being really specific about how you help people. There's such a bigger shift beyond just launching and being kind of like the generalist service provider, word of mouth freelancer, where someone's coming to you telling you what they want. And you're like, okay, let me get a proposal together and I'll like, do it custom for everyone, to being like that person that does that thing. And I think there's a real apprehension to do that for some reason because you think you're going to be like cutting off some sort of income stream, because so much of your current income stream is people giving you like a prescriptive thing that they need and you saying, okay, here's how I can help. Whereas when you are more proactive, you have to be like, I'm the launch girl, I'm the systems girl. And that, I don't know, maybe people feel like they're boxing themselves in, but to me, it just leads to so much more opportunity with the way that you deliver things, with how creative you can be. It's like, you know how they always say creativity needs a container?
Mhm.
I feel like giving yourself a specific role within the service provider space provides that container. And then you can have so much fun and so much play. I think when you give yourself just like, I can do anything, that's when it gets really overwhelming. And then people, yeah, they have no idea what you do, right?
Because then you can never really productize what you do. Like if you're constantly creating something custom for every single person that comes across you and is like, "Hey, like you seem really great. I want to work with you. Can you help me with this?" If you have 20 different inquiries of 20 different things and you're basically creating this new offer for every single one of them, how can you get really good at the one thing that you could focus on to actually like bring your business to a new level?
Exactly. And I think that's where launching becomes this like all encompassing like sprint into this new kind of direction of your business. I used to teach how to grow your own brand, how to make like ownable products and services and have like a thing that you're known for. That was like my first ever course. And through that process, I realized it's actually in the implementation that that comes to fruition. And that implementation process is a launch because you are presenting your expertise on a productized platter to people and saying, this is how I help you. Come on in. And therefore, you're like going through that ownable brand process, but it's only through that like launch that you're able to kind of create that for yourself. You build the sales page, you create the branded offer, you get really distilled on your messaging, get really good at sales. Um, so it's just this like all encompassing moment to make that shift, I think.
No, I love that. And I do think that a lot of service providers are scared to put themselves in a box. And I'm not like that. You know that. I declared to the world recently, oh, I want to be the person who sets up systems for photographers using Dubsado. Does that mean that I stopped getting inquiries from non-photographers? Nope. I've had 3 this week that were like, hey, Coley, I just want to make sure. Like, I'm not a photographer. Will systems and session work for me? So even when you define that box for yourself, people are still going to inquire about whether or not the thing that you're offering will work for who they are, who they serve, and what they need. So it's not like giving yourself this very narrow focus is going to repel people. In most cases, if they're unsure, they will come ask you, hey, I just want to make sure, like, your offer seems great, but I don't seem like I'm the best fit. Will this work for me? And then you have the opportunity to have that conversation, which I do think that launching is really about opening conversations with people so that you have the opportunity to talk to your ideal clients a lot more.
I love that. I always say that is like it starts a dialogue. People who are like, "Oh, I hate launching. I never want to launch." I mean, maybe it's a bit of a hot take, but to me, you're going to lose the pulse of your audience because the people's patterns and their buying patterns change. When I started in 2020, everyone was selling like bundles and like it was all about like how many things you could stuff into your offer. Now it's a lot more about implementation and like community and the human behind the brand because of AI. And if you didn't have your finger on the pulse through that big shift, you the lost the narrative basically. And you see that a lot with coaches now who are trying to resuscitate on like threads and Substack and like coming up with new offers to try to get it back. And to me, launching is essential to continue that dialogue, to stay on the cutting edge of what's happening. And also, if you ever want to pivot, like, yes, maybe you don't want to box yourself in, maybe you don't want to be the photographer person or like whatever, but you can start there and then you can always pivot. Like I started out being a brand designer and I was launching brand design services. And then I went into growing a brand course. Now I'm the launch girl. Who knows? Maybe in the future, I always have a dream of painting. Like maybe I'll be an artist. Who knows? But at least with that skill of being able to launch and communicate and like build community through that process, I can kind of do anything. You can evolve. Without it, I feel like it's a lot harder to do.
We're going to come around to the warm up now, Kelsey. It only took us 13 minutes. So,
Okay.
Kelsey's got this idea. And we're going to start with we've hopefully convinced you guys of the power of launching. Even if you're not 100% there, like go with us. So you don't decide one day, hey, I'm going to launch. And then you basically start writing emails. Like that's not how it goes. So, Kelsey, tell me about the concept of a warm up and why it is so important to the success of your launch.
Yeah, it's something I discovered back when I was launching my brand design offers. I realized like anytime I would just start showing up and being like, okay, guys, I'm opening up my spots for this offer. Like, let's come on in. It would just be really slow until maybe like a couple of weeks in. Then people would start clocking it and starting to inquire. And by that time, I'd be like, oh, I'm over talking about this. Like, I'm trying, yeah, like hard selling for 2, 3 weeks to an audience that like needs to be prepped is hard. But then I realized, okay, if I actually start a month before I open my wait list, I start prodding people, letting them know about the incentives, that the price might be going up, letting them, see social proof, things like that, then they're waiting for it. And when I open doors, I pretty much just have to open doors and within the first few days, the spots are gone. So I kind of just through trial and error saw that actually, it's not when I open cart that matters. It's the trust I'm building before I open cart, where the magic happens and where the launch really happens. And that's kind of where the whole warm up concept came to be. And now it's something I teach really intensively in my programs because I find it's the biggest issue with creatives. They go from over nurturing to hard selling, and there's like nothing in between. Like there's no bridge, right? And that, I guess the warm up really is the bridge. And I see the warm up as part of the launch, as an essential part of the launch.
Yeah, they try to go from 0 to 100 with absolutely like no kind of conversation, no dialogue. It's just, hey, buy my
Yeah.
thing. And it's like, well, first of all, who are you?
Who are you?
And what is your offer? And how does it
Literally.
help me? And like, you haven't prepared them to receive the offer so that they could consider like working with you. So I'm going to ask you the question, and I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask anyways because I feel like the audience needs to know. Hey, Kelsey, what is an appropriate warm up for me to launch my product? Like, is 2 weeks enough? Is 3 weeks enough? How do I determine how long my warm up needs to be?
Oh, I always just say like how long is a piece of string with that. And that's like a saying that I hear a lot around other concepts, but like it just means like you don't know until you do it. I do think I'm going to create like a guide around, like a freebie guide around how long I would probably do based on some factors, but it really depends how warm your audience is currently, not how big your audience is, because most people in Launch Your Own Way have less than 1,000 followers and they have massive launches. So it doesn't actually have anything to do with the audience size. It just has to do with how much they trust you and how much they recognize that you're the one to create the transformation you're promising. So I'd say look at your audience. There's a few things that you can tell with how hot they are. Are you getting like regular DMs? Are you getting pretty good engagement on your posts? Do you have a good engaged email list? So when you send your weekly newsletter, are people opening it? Is it, 40, 50, 60%, 70% and beyond? Are you getting a steady stream of inquiries right now, even though you're not actively launching? That's a really good indicator. And when you show up, are you clear on like how you talk about your offers? Are you clear what your offers even are? Is your audience clear about what they are? Maybe do that thing that we said earlier. That's a trend of like, do you know what I do? Because that'll give you a lot of insight into what it is. And then based on your audience heat level, if you're answering all of these, like, nope, 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 like no engagement, no email list, cold. I would probably like do a couple of months of really intensive warm up around one offer that you're pointing them toward. Because the biggest issue I see often is I'll go on a creative's page and they don't have anywhere they're leading anyone, right? There's just a bunch of like posts, like a confusing link in bio. Sometimes they don't even have a website. So you really want to like start leading them and breadcrumbing them into deeper areas of expertise over 2 months, 3 months. If they're warmer, I'd say like a month and a half. Like you really don't need that much time. I'm launching something right now. I did 2 weeks because it was like I already have a really, really hot audience around it. So it can be really quick. It just depends on your current audience heat and how long it's going to take them to get to that warmer place.
But you do actually have to look at your audience. You do have to engage with your audience. I think that some people are like, oh my gosh, I mean, Kelsey, 2 months? Like, what am I going to talk about for 2 months? Guys, there's so much stuff that you can talk about in 2 months. And when Kelsey just said that her warm up period, very meta, her warm up period to sell a warm up offer was only 2 weeks, that's because she's constantly talking about the warm up. She has a podcast dedicated to the warm up. It's one of the biggest things that she teaches inside of Launch Your Own Way. So when she creates this new offer around the warm up, yeah, she doesn't need more than 2 weeks because people are constantly hearing about the warm up from her. But like, let's say that Kelsey had a baby, which she did, and that she just completely stopped talking to her audience, which she didn't. But if she did, and she had ghosted them for 5 months, yeah, she would need more than a 2 week warm up, even to sell them an offer on the warm up.
Yeah, it's funny that your audience does cool down very quickly because there's so much noise. So if you aren't like at least showing up somewhere consistently, and that doesn't mean you need to show up everywhere, but at least somewhere consistently, it's going to be really hard for you to keep them warm. So I do kind of say like the warm up is forever. It just tends to be like a little bit more intensive and a little bit more specific around one offer when you're gearing up toward a launch. One way to really figure out how hot your audience is that I didn't mention is creating like an interest list or a wait list around your offer. Right? Going back to thinking like there's tons of lurkers in your audience. They maybe have been to your website, they've maybe perused your page, and then they've been like, not now, no reason to book now, not sure she's the right one for me. And the algorithm, who knows if they're showing you them your stuff or not at the moment. So you want to get them onto an email list and really capture them and say, okay, like these are my hottest people who are most likely wanting my service. So you can just create a really simple form, use Flowdesk, do a quick and dirty, and just start putting out like, I'm growing a wait list for this offer. Like if anyone's interested, get on here. Obviously, like be more like don't like be so directly salesy, but just start putting out the wait list. If people are joining it, you know that you have a good offer that people want in your audience.
Let's talk about incentives. You said that word, and we don't have to go into a lot of depth because you talk about this a lot in Launch Your Own Way. But it is more than just educating. You do have to give them a reason to buy. And in some cases, we were talking about urgency, and we don't want to do false urgency, but giving incentives is a way to do urgency, because if they want this thing, then now is the time for them to sign up for your wait list or your interest list or actually buy. So, what advice do you give people around incentives? Like, should they be giving people everything? Should they be giving people one thing? I mean, incentives are another like huge pool of like ideas that we could talk about, but I just wanted to like ask you this question because you threw the word out, and I feel, and probably you feel, that when you say incentive, everybody goes to discount. So,
Mm.
is that what you mean by incentive?
Not at all, no. And I would like to first talk about the false urgency idea because I do think a lot of people are really put off by launches because of false urgency. So when we say incentives, we're not saying, oh, pretend that your price is going to go up or pretend that you only have a certain number of spots. Or the worst thing I saw over Black Friday, Cyber Monday were like big brands being like, oh yeah, like we have this discount and it's the biggest discount we're going to have. And then the next week they're like, now it's even more of a discount. And you're like, wait, I just bought last week. Like you said that was the biggest discount.
Mhm.
Or like, oh, the doors close on this date. And then they're like, oh, never mind, the doors aren't closed. Like, I'm not saying stuff like that. Yes, that might work like for urgency, but I really don't recommend lying or doing things like that. There are things that are true about your offer. One is that you might have limited spots. I know both of us have offers that we can't have infinite people in because of how much time it takes us in those spaces. For me, Launch Your Own Way VIP, I pretty much cap it at 50 people because I give a lot of support in that space. I know systems in session, you only have a couple spots a month and a quarter because it's done with you. It's like a big, or it's done for you, isn't it?
It's done with you.
It's
No,
done
it's
with you.
done with you.
Okay.
But, and I've been tracking how much time I spend with people.
Hmm.
And like right now, Kelsey, I have more people than ever. There's 10 active people, which
Oh my
feels
God.
like a lot to me. But so
That's a
I
lot.
don't have false urgency. Like it's real.
Yeah, it's real. So that's one area. So look at your offer and see what is real about it, right? You probably do have a limited amount of spots. You probably either are like raising the price. I know a lot of people right now with the cost of living, the cost of the fact that every single platform that we use has just raised their prices. Your skill level probably improves, gradually. There could be also bonuses and stuff that are seasonal that, only work at a certain time of year or you're testing out for the offer. So there's lots of things that can be true. I would start with what is true about the offer and then don't overstuff it. Like some people are like, oh, I have to give like something for this and something for that and something for that. You really can get away with just a few simple things and it absolutely does not have to be a discount. A lot of people in Long Term Way don't discount and do great. I just signed up for a TikTok course. She didn't discount. She just said there's 8 spots for this cohort and it goes on sale on this date and get in if you want. And I got in because I wanted to do it. And she did such a good job selling. So yeah, it's about choosing what is true about the offer and what you feel aligned with as the leader of your business.
So you mentioned bonuses, and I'm always curious because I have played around with like a lot of bonuses between my course and my, done with you and all the things. What have you found is the most effective way to choose a bonus for a particular launch?
that's a really good question. It depends because, like, you could either go really high value, which is always going to be your time. So I've played around with that a lot in the past because I'm just like, oh, I want to get as many people in during this time. So maybe I'll do like a one-on-one call or something like that. That's really good if you want like high sales. But I also think if you don't want to use your time, a lot of things that are great that don't require more time from you are either like extra course material that would be a benefit to them. I guess this would include your time a little bit, but something I'm playing around with for Launch Your Own Way is like a lifetime access, like special channel or like a renewal special channel for people who renew their memberships that they can like get in a special channel for extra feedback. I think people just love extra access, more knowledge, more implementation. So anything around those ideas are really great. Have you seen anything in particular work?
I mean, I love the one-to-one offers, even though, and the thing is, when you do a one-to-one offer, they are limited because again, if you only have limited space, you definitely have limited, capacity to do all of these bonuses. So I've personally seen that one-to-ones, work well for me and my audience, but also like a bonus training. That works really well. Also, I always have guilt. And now that I know my human design, I realize this is where it comes from. But I have guilt when I offer a special training as the bonus, because then the people who perhaps don't find me until after the launch is over, they don't get the special training. And so then I feel bad and I feel guilty. And so I tend to avoid that because like you said, I have capacity. And so when I say the first 5 people get this, 30-minute one-to-one call, I mean it because I can't offer that unlimited. Whereas my, bonus training, I mean, I record it once. I could literally give it to everyone, but I'm using it as an incentive to get people to make a decision.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is something to think about too, like what aligns most with how you feel internally. And that's something I always teach in Launch Your Own Way is like, and that's why it's called Launch Your Own Way. It's like you have to feel good and aligned about how you show up and how you're selling the things that you're offering. So if there's a coach out there being like, you have to launch this way or follow this formula, but it doesn't sit right with you, it's never going to feel good. And I'm finding that with social media a bit right now because I've gotten so much input around how to create on Instagram, how to create on TikTok. And I'm like, but this doesn't feel good for me, And like, you have to have the discernment of like, okay, yes, maybe that's successful for that person. But if I don't feel good doing it, even if it makes me successful, it's not going to be sustainable. So I do want to just like make sure that people are hearing that even if one on one is like, oh, I don't want to show up to 5 30-minute calls with my students, you don't have to do that. You don't even have to really offer any incentives except limited spots or like you could have I would have one incentive for sure, at least one, but you don't have to do any of that. Like you don't have to do limited spots or you don't have to do a discount or you don't have to do bonuses. I would have something, but you don't have to do anything.
Well, and I feel like I just want to clarify to ask you, you want to have something because otherwise, why should they buy now instead of next month or next quarter or next year? Now, that's what you're presenting in the offer. And then there's always the internal urgency. So we've already talked about like the external urgency with the bonuses and limited spots, but people also have internal urgency to fix their problem. And so I feel like that's where the warm up really comes in, because if you want to make sure that your clients understand, hey, if we fix your systems this month, when you start getting lots of inquiries for your fall sessions in the next 6 weeks, you'll be able to handle it. You won't be caught in the middle of stressing out because you know that you've got 5 inquiries that you didn't have a chance to answer. And so a lot of my content, warm up and even going into the launch, is kind of seeding that internal urgency. I don't want them to feel guilty, but I do want them to understand that where they are right now isn't where they have to be if we could sit down and make a plan and get their systems in order.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good point is like making it also in your messaging, why is now the right time for them to book, like why? And that is an objection you'll get throughout your launch a lot is like, oh, I just don't think it's the right time or I'll join next time. And I'm never into like convincing people like you have to do it right now, but your messaging should like let them know, okay, but waiting another 6 months is like, there will be things that you will miss out on, like bookings potentially, which is money. So I think that all comes out to messaging. And obviously at the end of the day, I think you should just empower your potential clients, your potential customers to make the best decision for themselves. And to me, the warm up is what does that. It really preps them to purchase or to not purchase and to make that empowered decision for themselves.
Excellent, Kelsey, because that's really all I want at the end of the day. I used to refer to my sales calls as alignment calls, decision calls, if you will. I'm just there so that you can ask me the questions and I can give you the information that you need in order to say yes or no. Because one of the worst things that I feel like a business owner can do, related to launching or not, is just sit in indecision. Like you're spending so much time thinking about the pros and cons and making a list and basically leaking all of your energy that you never make a decision and move on. Because guess what? If I'm trying to sell you on systems and sessions so that I can help you design and implement, full client experience systems in Dubsado, and you decide not to work with me, hopefully that means that you go find another solution so that you actually get your systems set up. But I don't want you to still be sitting here like, oh, well, should I work with Coley? Should I not work with Coley? And all of a sudden it's 3 months later and you still have not taken a single step towards solving the problem that we've already identified that you have.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking too about launching in a way. If you kind of like think about what you just said, it's really a generous act because you're giving people, a timeline in which to make a decision. So they're not umming and ahhing about something for the next 6 months. They're saying, okay, yes, this is a decision I want to make right now. This is something I want to move forward with, or, oh, no, it's not. And I can move on. And I think that's actually really generous as a business owner to have to have a place where people can easily decision make because you're being proactive about the way you're presenting it.
Now, everybody's launch plans are going to be different, but I'm curious for you because I'm currently launching once a quarter, and that feels like a lot. We'll talk about that in office hours, Kelsey, but in office hours. But for yourself, what do you find is the sweet spot for your launches? Because I really think that you take a very unique approach to launching for your own business.
Yeah, it's evolved so much. Like I used to, so when I was doing one-on-one services, it was once a quarter, and it did feel like I don't know if it really felt like a lot because the alternative was always on, and then it was
Mhm.
like that low key stress of like always trying to book. So it felt a lot better than that, but it was like it did come up pretty quickly, but it did also give me the structure around sales. And then, like, being sold out in advance for a quarter was also like, okay, sweet. I don't need to worry about sales again until next quarter. So to me, it actually was much better than the alternative of like that low key stress of where's the next client coming from 24/7. But then when I moved to more of a scalable business model where I have courses and stuff, I just wanted to get my reps in and learn as quickly as possible what people wanted and needed. So there was a year where I was literally launching something like every single month just to learn like, okay, what product do people want? What offers do people want? Where's my audience at? Really opening up that dialogue and failing quickly so I could figure out, okay, this is what they want or this is what they didn't want. And that's how I developed my first course, Grow Your Own Brand, which was really successful for 2 years, and Launch Your Own Way, which is now my entire business. So I'd say if you're early on in launching, like the more reps you can get in, the better. It's kind of like content where like the way that you figure out what your audience wants to see and what they want to hear is by doing a lot of content. If you wait like, you know, if you're only posting once a week, it's going to take you a lot more to get that information. Same with launching. Now, because I have this repeatable sales system in my business, I have a scalable offer that brings me recurring revenue. I only really need to do 2 big launches a year. I do smaller launches in between that are more like warm ups for those bigger launches. And those big launches bring in a lot of income, recurring revenue, so that I really only focus on those 2 big ones a year. And that's working with my current energy as a new mom, as a mom of two, as someone who's in a season of her business where she can't be launching every single month. So I also
Yes.
think like look at what works for you in the season that you're in.
But the thing is, you can't figure out what works for you if you don't make a decision and actually launch.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
You got to do it.
I feel like one of the best things of being in Launch Your Own Way, and I just want to preface this with, guys, this is not me. I think I'm talking about my other fellow students in there. But I think the best thing that Kelsey does is she doesn't tell you what to decide, but she pushes you to make a decision. She gives you the feedback that you need in order to decide and put a plan in place. Because again, if you get people that just get too far in the weeds thinking, what if, is $100 discount enough, or should I make it 150? And I'm screaming in my head, that doesn't make it, they're not going to make a difference. Pick
You're like
one
my
and
co-coach
try it
on
out.
call. You're like my co-coach on calls. You'll come on and just be like, listen, I just have to say something really quick. I'm like, yep, take the floor. Go ahead. Totally. I think that's a really lovely compliment as well, because it's a hard balance between wanting to tell someone what to do, but also knowing that I don't want to be that coach that's like, here's the ABC plan that you have to execute, because I don't want, I never want to tell someone that they have to do something that they don't want to do or that isn't aligned. So yeah, I do. I try to like give them the next steps. Okay, this decision's made. Here's what I would do next. And I would like to see that in the next office hours. 5 times out of 10, they will come back in the next office hours. You are someone that always comes back in the next office hours, even if it's just to update me on what you've done. You're very much an action taker. And I think that if you have a tendency to take action, messy action, you will do very, very well in Launch Your Own Way. If you are someone who overanalyzes, this might be a business thing in general. You may struggle for sure. But I
It's
guess that's why VIP is great, because I'm there to push you along.
yes. And those of you not watching me on YouTube, I was vigorously shaking my head and saying yes, because you do have to make a decision. You cannot sit there forever. And I think that one of the things that really helps push people along sometimes is just when they spend money. And so, I mean, I feel like I had just had what I would quote unquote call a failed launch. And you always correct me and say your launch was not a failure. You learned a lot from it. Everybody else does as well. But I didn't hit my goal. And so by paying you to first join Launch Your Own Way, and guys, I was harassing her, like, I think on a weekly basis on Instagram. Is there a spot in VIP yet? Is there a spot in VIP yet? And then I got in, and of course, I hit the ground running again, showing up in office hours every week. But I do feel like I just want to highlight one more time what she said about the messy action. And that's just not how you're successful in launching or in Launch Your Own Way or with systems, but for your entire business. I mean, I feel like if I could make a t-shirt and basically be, this is what Coley says to do, it's don't sit in indecision. Sometimes you just got to make a decision and take a leap. And if it doesn't work, write down what you learned and try again.
Yeah, I think that's such a good, like, I always say launching is never a failure, because even my last launch didn't hit the numbers. I had a 120K goal. I think I hit like $86,000, which is still a really great launch, but it wasn't even close to what my goal was. And that's fine, because guess what? I'm going to look at the data. I'm going to figure out maybe where people were at, maybe what I needed to do, maybe more warming up, maybe the time of year. I launched during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I don't think I'll do that again. And it's just information that then I get to look at and be like, oh, okay, that's interesting, and then move on to the next thing. If you spend too much time dwelling in your failure, you're just never going to move forward in business. Like, everything is hardly ever works out the exact way that you want it to. And then as far as not sitting in indecision, I think that's where, again, like, launching is a place that is just going to help you make lots of decisions very quickly. And I think that's why it's like this perfect container for growth, not only growth in your business, but growth with yourself as well. Like, getting comfortable with things that you have to do as a leader, like showing up, selling, believing in yourself, leading your students, leading your community into a sale. All of these things are skills that are going to help you not only grow in business, but grow as an individual.
Kelsey, I was going to wrap this up, but unfortunately, there is just one more thing that we have to talk about based on what you just said.
All right.
Postmortems. Tell me what a postmortem is and why I should care about it related to launching.
I know. I feel like I need to give it a different name, because it sounds very like morbid for some reason. When I hear the word postmortem, I'm like, maybe it's that Taylor Swift song where she's like sad about a relationship. Is that a Taylor Swift song? Postmortem?
I would not know. one of my
Sorry,
business
we're both not
besties is a Taylor
Swifties.
Swift. We're not Swifties. Hey, please don't hate us.
Two Swifties brought up a Swift song, and we're both like, "Is that right?" I might have just lied about that. But if let us know in the YouTube comments if I'm being correct or not. My two sisters are Swifties, so I've heard enough songs in my life. But uh, yeah, it's the idea that once you're finished with the launch, most people just move on to the next launch or like forget about it, all done. And they don't actually look at the data. There's so much good data. You can look at your email open rates. You can look at where people clicked. You can look at the Instagram stories that people were the most like viewed or that people clicked onto. You can look at your website traffic and your conversion rates and all of that information. If you collate it in one place, is going to then give you so much good nuggets into how you're going to launch next time, the things you're going to talk about, how many more emails you're going to send or less emails, what you're going to post about. So do a postmortem in Launch Your Own Way. There's a whole unit on, or a whole like module, I guess you call it, on how to do a postmortem with some tools that I use for mine. And yeah, I'd say it's just as important as the launch for sure. It's like where you get all the valuable information.
And you said something, and so I'm going to follow up. I think that a postmortem is the best way for you to make strategic, data driven decisions going forward for your next launch. Because I think a lot of us, and listen, I'm not excluding myself, audience, like I have been guilty of this, but I feel like sometimes we make really emotional decisions in business. Now, I don't do that often, but like sometimes I'm like, you know what? This doesn't feel good. This is not something that I want to continue. Like, I'm going to stop doing this right now. But there are other times that I just have to like sit with my energy and force myself to continue and see it through, because in the end, it's going to be more data for me to look at and analyze before I plan my next launch. And so, I mean, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that because I'm all about the strategy. I'm all about the data. I'm all about not just throwing shit on the wall to see what sticks. You can do that the first time, maybe even the second time, maybe even little parts of your future launches will be, hey, I just want to try this out and see what happens. But every time you launch, every time you are building the habits of doing this, you are learning more to potentially make your next launch more successful.
I love that. Yeah, it definitely helps with decision making. There were lots of things that came out in my last postmortem around my launch that helped me see, oh, okay, here's what I'm going to do for even before the launch, during the warm up, the products I'm going to put out. Because even after a launch, I'll send out a survey to say, like, why did you or didn't you join this round? And even in that, you just get people being like, oh, I didn't understand this, or I thought this. And you're like, oh, what? I need to do way more content that helps them explain, that helps them understand. So yeah, it really helps with decision making. And I know we keep coming back to like making decisions in your business to help move you forward. And when you have the data, that makes it a lot easier than an emotional decision.
I mean, Kelsey, normally this would be where I'd be like, hey, can you talk about and talk about your offers and where people can find you? I'm going to do it for you. I'm sorry. So again, it's Kelsey of Coming Up Roses, and her offer is Launch Your Own Way. And just so that you know, I was in there for a 6-month stint, and then I bought lifetime access. So Kelsey's never getting rid of me. And I think you guys know by now, I would not bring somebody on the podcast that I did not think would legitimately make your life or your business better, when I'm over here like promoting their offers for them. So if you are someone who is currently struggling with sales, you can't figure out how to get a rhythm, you've heard about launching, you think it's not for you, I would highly recommend that you join Kelsey's email, or maybe that you get a few episodes that she puts out of her Warmup podcast for free. You can go to her website. The link is in the show notes so that you can listen, because I really do feel like it's a perspective that has really made me a better salesperson. I mean, I thought I was good before, but now it makes me actually do the things that I need to do in order to keep my business moving. Kelsey, do you want to add
Yes.
anything to that?
I just think you've done so incredibly in the program. It really speaks so much to like the kind of business owner you are. I like you came in with a certain set of offers, and through the process of launching have really like found what your star offer is. You've like never given up. You've always been willing to try and see what works and see what doesn't. And I just admire the way that you show up so much. You're also someone who like really does it your own way. Like you're not on every social media platform. You're not trying to do TikTok like my silly but I don't know why I'm trying to do TikTok right now. You do have a really simple launch system, and I personally find that really inspiring as well. So I just wanted to give you some credit because I feel like you're just so great at it and you're such a leader in this space, and I'm really lucky to have you in the program.
Aw, Kelsey, hugs. All
Hugs,
right,
virtual
everybody.
hugs.
We are going to end it here because, I talk to Kelsey almost every week in office hours, and I feel like we
Yeah.
could just go on forever. So, once again, the show notes have all of the links that you guys need. And that's it for this episode. See you next time.